In a previous lesson, we learned a little bit about the cultural emergence of modern science. It's a fairly recent cultural discovery, but it had its roots in ancient thinking in ancient Greece. And we learned that the Greeks were fond of this idea of adversarial discussion. They applied this concept to lots of domains in society, including their attempts to understand the natural world. However, they did not seem to systematically test their ideas against nature with experiments. So we don't locate the origin of modern science 2,500 years ago. Rather, it's only 400 years old. In this lesson, we're going to see another way of thinking about the knowledge that is produced by science. Now here we're going to use a graphic representation of our web of knowledge, like a spider web, and a node would be a bit of knowledge connected to other bits of knowledge. And here are some examples in modern times: evolutionary theory, cell theory, Big Bang theory, plate tectonics, general relativity, periodic table of the elements, germ theory, disease. These are all well-established nodes in our modern web of knowledge. In the past, there were other beliefs held by people, and here are some representative examples. Now, knowledge is provisional. It is subject to change because science is this social procedure, and we continue to gather new evidence, testing our ideas, and so knowledge can change. These nodes can change. But the current nodes of knowledge have passed a checking process, and this makes knowledge different from mere belief. So again, these ideas that were held by people in the past were ultimately checked by this process and discarded. And so this is why people don't hold these ideas for the most part anymore, because this modern scientific method, this checking process, has discarded these ideas in favor of these ideas. These are the ideas that have been checked by the scientific method and found support from the evidence that was produced by that checking process. So, ideas must be checked by observation, experiment, and argument. And we're going to represent that checking process with this kind of filter. Ideas have to go through this filter. And this is what we're calling the scientific method. Ideas that can go through this filter can be installed into the web of knowledge. So basically, what is science? Testing ideas with observations, experiments, and arguments. It's a human affair. It's a social affair. If we step back and think about it, humans are interacting with nature and other humans to achieve an understanding of nature. Now, ideas that pass through this filter become integrated into the web of knowledge. So in this example, it's hypothesis 2 that makes it through. Look at hypothesis 1 and 3. They're blocked. These two ideas failed the checking process. They don't have supporting evidence or didn't make logical sense. So hypothesis 1 and 3 do not get integrated into the web of knowledge. Even though this node is supported by evidence and argument, it is still considered to be provisional knowledge. New evidence could remove this node. New evidence often comes from other scientists with a different interpretation of the shared evidence. This is good because individual scientists can be biased in accepting their preferred hypothesis. So the social nature of science helps to correct for a bias in our psychology. Science is about finding errors in our web of knowledge. In the previous lesson, sort of looking at the history of modern science, we gave two examples, William Harvey and Van Helmont. They were both testing ancient ideas and discarding many of those ancient ideas about human anatomy and physiology, as well as how plants grow. In science, it is ideas that die so that scientists don't have to. Now, what are we going to do about hypothesis 4? Should we install it into the web or not? Hypothesis 4 should not be integrated into the web. It did not undergo the proper checking process. So no matter who supports hypothesis 4, it does not count as knowledge until it is checked. It has to go through the filter that represents the scientific process. One's identity or social status is not a substitute for checking. All ideas are contestable, which is represented by entering the funnel to be checked by observation, experiment, and criticism from others with different views. Anyone, no matter their identity or group membership, can engage in the checking process. And so science can operate in diverse cultures, so long as participants accept the need for checking ideas. In the checking process, it is not enough that I checked or you checked, but science requires that we check and then compare, contest, and justify our conclusions. It is a very social phenomenon. Adults and educators often encourage young people to think for themselves. Now, this is desirable, but one's private thoughts will not become knowledge until they are checked by others in the community. So, science is a social institution, the success of which depends on participants meeting certain obligations. And here are a couple. Number 1, check your own claims and subject them to others. 2, tolerate competing claims. 3, accept that your own certainty counts for nothing. 4, accept that God, experience, intuition, status, or group membership has no weight in evaluating competing claims. And 5, defend science, even if you think other scientists are wrong. So science is indeed a recent cultural discovery. It's a set of attitudes that emerged just a few hundred years ago, and this attitude was one where if you really want to know what's going on in the world, in the universe, you've got to go through this process of testing ideas with observations and experiments and arguing about the results, and then doing further tests and have more arguments. That's this method of modern science. And as for the power of this approach, well, just look around the world. Look at the technology that we have. This is rooted in the emergence of modern science. And most of what we know about our own history of a species and how our bodies operate and where all the other species came from and where did the planet come from and stars and the entire universe, where did that all come from? Most of our knowledge is only a few hundred years old. Why? Because that's when modern science emerged.